I'm Stephen John Drew from the official GonnaGeek.com show, a weekly geek news podcast that is a part of the Gonna Geek Network, just like the show you're checking out now. Shows on the network are individually owned, and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other awesome geeky shows at GonnaGeekNetwork.com.
Stand by for a brand new episode of All Things Good and Nerdy.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to episode 476 of the All Things Good and Nerdy podcast. This is recorded live on Sunday, February 6th, 2022. We are 1 week away from the superb owl coming to visit us once again. For those longtime viewers of the show, you know that's a running gag we have because there was always that internet rumor that you couldn't say the word Super Bowl, even though it's fair use to talk about it, and we're not advertising ourselves with it. But
I never understood that rumor about the superb owl.
Neither did I. I am Chris. Joining me today, one of my two regular co-hosts. We're not sure where Willie is. We think he's alive somewhere. He's idle on Skype, so he may pop up at some point in time. But I am joined by Mr. Anthony Bachman.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have a lost Willie in the store. If you find it, please report it to a security desk.
There was a time when I could have told you what that code was at Walmart, but I don't remember.
The lost child code?
There's like the regular code Adam thing, but there was also like a different color code or whatever that they would come over the intercom and say if there was a suspected lost child.
All right.
I mean, granted, I only spent like one summer working at a Walmart, but it's weird the stuff that you retain.
Yeah, the strange things that stick in your brain. Hey, I haven't worked at child support in almost 2 years now, and I still am pretty up to date on the tax code.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
It's weird that I had to know that shit for 8 years in a row, so I know it pretty well.
Right. So some insight if you're at Walmart and you're checking out and someone walks by your cashier and says, "Hey, have you seen Bob today?" That means there's something underneath your cart that you forgot about that they're mentioning to the customer to know, or to the checkout associate to notify you of. Bottom of buggy, Bob.
Bob, bottom of buggy.
And then there's also
battery-operated boyfriend. Bob.
Yeah, there's also, have you seen Lisa today, which is look inside, and I can't remember what the A is, which means someone left something in their cart by accident when they were checking out.
Or like they filled a trash can full of bacon, and they're just trying to buy a trash can.
Maybe it's that too, I don't know. So those were two of the things, and here's some insight for you. 20-year-old Walmart logic. Oh God, it is almost 20 years old. Shit, because I worked there when I was like 18 or 19, and I'm 37 now. That's almost 20 years old.
in 2002. That was 20 years ago.
I was a junior in high school in 2002.
Yeah. And I was finishing my stint 6 years in the Navy. Drunk across the world.
Oh, man, this just made me feel old.
Good.
My insider knowledge from 20 years ago at Walmart. Enjoy yourselves, guys. Enjoy yourselves. God, I hated that job. I have great respect for people that do retail. But the most people I have the respect for that work the retail are the folks that have to work as the cart pushers in the front of a Walmart, whose job is all day long to go outside and push carts back in the store.
Yeah.
That's their job. And then, because I did it and it sucked. And then it's also...
Can you listen to podcasts while you're doing that job?
You weren't allowed to then listen to any music or anything like that. You had to wear your neon orange vest, and you had to go out there and push carts in. And we didn't have, like nowadays, they've got like that motorized cart where they can stack up like 20 or 30 carts, and they have like a remote control and can push them in with that. No, it was raw. You have to go push these in. And it was, we were not allowed to do any more than 10 carts at a time, or they would write us up for overworking. But we couldn't keep up if there was only one person working and you only brought in 10 carts at a time, so people would complain. Because here's the other kicker. The people, we were called stalkers. That was our job title. Yeah. We're also responsible for any customer carryout. Meaning if a customer had a big box or something they needed loaded in their car.
Yeah, you had to help them get to their car.
Or if
like
they
helping
needed
the elderly and stuff.
The one that really just ground my gears all the time was anyone that was buying something in electronics department, which is where all the younger, like teenage and early 20-year-old dudes wanted to work, was electronics. They wouldn't help carry the stuff out. They would call for a stalker. I'm like, we have one stalker on day shift. It was me. I've got to stop pushing carts now to go carry out a TV when there's like 6 people back there that could do it just as well as I could. And there was nothing in the handbook that said they couldn't do it. They just didn't want to. So, oh man. But I still think I met some cool people there, because the one guy, I can't remember his name to this day, but there's a tradition at Walmart, and not necessarily tradition, but people are used to it. That generally the greeters are older retirees who are putting in like part-time hours so they have something to do. And one of those guys, I cannot remember his name to save my life, was a Vietnam War veteran. Was just the coolest dude ever, but put up with no horse shit from anyone. Like if some customer started giving him lip, he just wouldn't put up with it. He would come and help us push carts in when things were slowed down because he refused to admit that he was an older guy and probably shouldn't be doing it. So he got written up because he helped us push carts. But I remember to this day, I'd walk in, I'd have a stack of carts, and I'd sit down and drink some water. He'd look at me like, Chris, go back outside. I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, they just called for a carry out to electronics. He goes, and if they can't find you, they can't make you do it. Go back outside.
Nice.
So anytime he was working, he would always be like, I'll let you guys know. Any of you stalkers, he goes, I'm going to keep you guys from having to do these stupid carryouts that they have no business taking you guys out from doing.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think all of our Walmarts here, I don't think they have the little machine buggies. I always see them doing it by hand because I see the machine buggies at our Wincos.
Okay.
And I'll see those Wincos kids, they'll push in a trail of 50, 60 carts all at once. Because, I mean, our Wincos are huge here. We're like, even I would randomly, when I was living in the condo, living by myself, working a normal daytime job, I would just randomly go do my shopping at like 10:30 at night on a Tuesday. Because I could be in and out of Winco in like 20 minutes.
Right.
And still, there would be 40 people shopping at Winco because it's a 24-hour grocery store. And so, yeah, like our Wincos are always super busy. But yeah, I'd see those kids out there with the little buggy powering it from behind. And they'll be pushing like 60 carts around the end of the parking lot back into the door.
I would have killed for one of those. Because, again, this is also 20 years ago. But if you were lucky, you had 2 stalkers on a shift during day shift. But generally at the end of the day and the very beginning of the day, you'd only have one person on with no overlap. So it would just be like on a Sunday morning, it was great because everyone was at church. But if you had the Sunday afternoon shift, you hated your life because you got your extra $1 an hour. But at the same time, everyone got out of church and went to Walmart to go get stuff. So you were just constantly back outside pushing stuff in. And I only worked there in the summers, which was fine. I can't imagine doing that in the winter. That's what would be brutal.
Thing. I worked at the restaurant I worked at before I joined the Navy was the Country Inn Buffet next to the Albertsons in Nampa.
Okay.
And it was literally our restaurant, and then into the same parking lot was an Albertsons, and across the street from that parking lot was a church. And so people would go to church, do their grocery shopping, and if they didn't have like anything that needed to go home immediately, they'd go right to the Country Inn Buffet for a late lunch. And so our Sunday afternoon into evenings was a mess. Mm-hmm. And it was just ridiculous because, I mean, I didn't have to deal with the customer because I was a dishwasher, but like every Sunday at noon, it would just go crazy. We'd have almost nobody in there for breakfast, and then all of a sudden the church would let out, and bam, we're seating 40 tables. I'm like, oh, here come the fucking dishes.
I mean, I loved working on Sunday mornings because I got that extra $1, and I would show up at like 6 a.m. and I'd be done by like 2. So I would just get the very beginning of the rush or something like that. That was fine. But if you wanted me to take like the afternoon, like noon to 8 shift, I was like, nope. That extra $1 ain't going to cut it.
Do you get an extra $1 for Sundays?
You get an extra $1 per hour on Sundays when I worked there. Granted, 20 years ago.
Yeah, 20 years ago. Now they take an extra $1 from you. Because fuck the customers.
Oh, man. I mean, I will give it this. I was in really good shape at the end of the summer because all I was doing was just hauling heavy carts and big customer carryouts. But I was exhausted. I would get home after work and be like, I'm going to bed. No. And the worst there was when you'd pull the shift to close, which wasn't actually closed because it was a 24-hour Walmart. But basically, if you were a stalker, you'd work until 11. That was the end of the late shift. And then you'd pull the early shift the next day. You're just like, I went home for like 6 hours. And I'm back here again. And like, that if you don't get enough of the carts pushed in before you go off on late shift, it's your problem in the morning that you're like, I'm just shooting myself in the foot now.
You're only in the chat says she knows those are called a cart hawk because she worked at Winco 25 years ago.
Oh, man. I mean, we were at a Walmart in a giant like shopping complex too. So the worst is when the manager would get a call for someone pissed off at the Circuit City down the road. That's probably a 5-minute walk from Walmart because people had left a bunch of Walmart carts there, and he'd be like, well, you gotta go pick up those Walmart carts. I'm like, how the shit am I gonna do this? You want me to stack these carts and push them along the road back to Walmart? What?
Yikes.
I was like, so send one of the trucks.
Literally pushing them down the street?
Yeah.
That doesn't seem safe.
I had to do it one time because the other times I was like, we're too busy. If I leave, there'll be no carts here. And I got a little gruff for it, or guff for it rather. And I was like, whatever, fire me. I don't care. It's Walmart. I'm going back to college soon. I don't care. But I remember doing that walk down to the friggin' Circuit City. I think, no, it was, Circuit City, because it was bright red and it looked like a plug. So that's Circuit City. And for younger kids, you have no idea what I'm talking about because Circuit City's been gone for like 15 years at this point in time.
It used to be a thing.
But it used to be a thing. It was like Best Buy. But
or Radio Shack.
Or Radio Shack. But I remember going down there, and they called me down there for 3 carts. And I had to stack 3 carts together. I mean, not stack, but like put them together into their row. And I had to push those things back up to the Walmart. And it was mostly an incline back up to Walmart, too. So I remember I got to the road, and it was a busy road.
Here's the old man story. It was uphill both ways.
No, it was downhill going there, which was fine. But I remember I got to the intersection. I'm like, I've got to get across to where that parking lot is, because it was like 2 parking lots with a road in between. And I was just waiting for the right window where I could just run across with 3 carts and hopefully not fall flat on my face.
Yikes. I was thinking it's funny because I actually do have the old man story. My first dojo that I used to walk to, I literally walked to in the snow uphill both ways.
Oh,
because it was on a super busy street in Denver, but it was literally on the other side of a hill. So I would walk up the hill from my house, there was literally an old Jewish cemetery on the side of the road. So I was literally walking next to headstones and stuff, going past a graveyard, then I'd go down the hill, and that's where the strip mall was for the dojo. And yeah, it was Colorado in the winter. So yeah, I was literally walking uphill both ways in the snow.
Like I said, I can't imagine those guys that are the cart hawks or the stalkermen, as the Walmart called them, doing that stuff in the winter where it's snowing out there. You've got a bunch of snow on the ground. You're cold, you're wet, you're damp because you're sweating, and you take a layer off and then you're cold. You've got to keep putting layers off and on with gloves on, having to clean the damn carts off when they come back in. I can't imagine.
It doesn't matter how many times they plow. They never completely plow the entire parking lot because there's always parts that are missed because there was cars that was parked, or there's where the little cart holders are at. So like all that stuff's always blocked off. So yeah, everything can't be completely plowed, so it's never completely safe.
Like in the summer, it was hot and uncomfortable because you're out in the asphalt all day. So you get really hot and you get a pretty decent tan also. But in the winter, I just can't imagine what it was like. I didn't go back to work in the winter there because I was only off for like 2 weeks. And thankfully, the next year I had an internship, so I didn't have to go back to Walmart. So I have a lot of respect for people who have to do that job because I absolutely hated it. So I understand where people are like, I got no choice, I got to do this, but mega loathe it. So I know it sounds like I'm talking from a perspective of privilege, and maybe I am, but oh man, that was my most miserable summer job I've ever had, was working there. And maybe it's just because they put me in one of the worst positions, because I think I've talked about it on this show before, and I'll stop ranting about it here in a few. We were responsible for like customer carryouts and stuff, but we were also responsible for moving the big items out of layaway, or when someone takes something layaway, putting it back in the room. But we were also in charge of hanging the bicycles from the hooks in the garden center. If you go into a lot of Walmarts, if you go into the garden center and look up, it used to be there were a bunch of bicycles hanging off the ceiling because there were a bunch of hooks built into the ceiling. And that's where they would put the excess supply of bicycles, assembled bicycles, both men's, women's, kids, small children's, things like that. You know how those got up there back in the day? It was they took one of those stockmen and said, here, carry this up there. Stand on your tiptoes on the top of this goddamn step ladder. And not like regular step ladder, but think of a ladder that actually has like steps, like you'd have at your front door. So like you could kind of walk up those steps. But you'd get to the top and you'd just barely be able to reach those hooks because they weren't quite tall enough to get all the way up there. And you're up there and you feel the thing swaying back and forth because of how high up you are.
Unsafe.
Oh, man. And I was sitting there, I was like, can't you just... I understand stupid things have to be done. I'd much rather get like the certification to drive a forklift, because that would be a lot more fun than me climbing up here. Someone who doesn't like heights.
Yeah.
Climbing up there. Yeah. The best thing that ever happened to me is when they're like, hey, we're out of bicycles. I'd be like, yes!
Like,
I don't have to deal with it.
You don't want any damn bicycles. But yeah, and like hanging them from giant hooks in the ceiling anyways, it's like, okay, they're out of the way, but then they're a giant pain in the ass to go get too.
Well, that's someone else's problem, though.
Yeah. Oh, but that wasn't your problem.
Well, I mean,
fair enough.
I mean, it was still my problem. I'd have to get them down, but I think the management perspective was it kept clutter off the floor of the store, and they could have things assembled already. From the employee perspective, we were like, I'm going to die up there.
Yeah, it does not sound safe.
Again, this is the ramblings of an old man from 20 years ago of a part-time job. So thank you for joining us on the All Things Good and Nerdy podcast as I regale you with my tales of a summer at Walmart.
I never did Walmart. Luckily, yeah, my one real customer service job, I did like 2 McDonald's jobs, but then my actual customer service was at Youth Ranch and running the bookstore, and then working at the comic book store, which comic book store I loved. If I could actually paid my bills with that job, I never would have.
That would have been great, yeah. If I could pay my bills working in a video game store too, that would also be cool.
Yeah, but GameStop will only pay you one quarter portion.
Not GameStop. I said video game store. There's still like the mom and pop independently owned ones that I think would be pretty cool to work at, but at the same time, I know it's not going to pay my bills.
I think we've only had one here in Boise that was still running for a while. I'm not sure if it's still there or not.
I don't know.
It was like Adventureland video game buy and sell or something. So yeah, I wonder if that place is still there.
We had a few. The one I really liked closed down. God, it's probably been 3 years ago at this point in time. But it was one that was there when I went to school in Morgantown. Had been here like 10 years before that. And it was like the vintage game store. I don't even remember what the actual name of it was, but everyone just called it Vintage in town. If they were talking about games, like, oh, you been to Vintage yet? It was awesome. And they'd been here forever, just a small-owned business. And it was a matter of the guy was like, I'm not making enough money for me to keep wanting to do this. And he goes, I'm ready to retire, I think is what it was.
Yeah.
And I was like, I get it. And no one else is like, I want to pick up and buy a back stock of a video game store and run it. I get it.
Yeah, I mean, that's got to be a passion project. I miss the old mom and pop video stores. That's why I didn't feel bad when Netflix killed Blockbuster, because Blockbuster killed all the mom and pop video stores. So I was not sad when Blockbuster died.
Right.
Because, yeah, Movie Magic Video, like, you can't see it behind me yet. I will have to rehang it again eventually. But I've got my Robot Jocks plastic 3D, like, puff plastic poster that the elderly couple that ran Movie Magic Video off of, I want to say it might have been 12th Avenue in Nampa. Like, that was the place I started going and renting movies when I was a kid, when I was like 9 or 10. And like by the time I was 12, like they were just handing me posters.
Yeah, you were a regular.
Like, yeah, I was a regular. I would come in and they'd be like, "Oh, hey, we took these posters down. Do you want any of them?" Like, I think by 12 they started letting me watch. They would let me rent R-rated movies because I knew my mom was cool with it, and so like I could go rent horror films, and like they were like, "Okay, cool, just stay out of the closet with the beaded door." But other than that, I had free reign because yeah, they literally had like a little tiny room that had like 40 porno tapes in it. But yeah, it was an old, VHS rental place. Yep. And yeah, it was like a couple in their 70s. And like, that's what they were doing with their retirement, was they were just running a video store. They didn't open until like noon, and they closed at, I think, like 5. So, they worked maybe 5 hours a day, maybe 6, get there early, vacuum, and open the place. And yeah, it was a nice little mom and pop shop. And I love that place. And then, yeah, as soon as Blockbuster came to town, like everybody stopped going there. It's like, really? These nice old people, and then yeah, all those mom and pop stores got killed. It's so sad. Damn you, Blockbuster.
I mean, I was watching a documentary. I can't remember if it was on Netflix or Hulu or whatever, but it was, in some cases, either Hollywood Video or Blockbuster would buy out some of the small chains too to take over. So at least in that regard, if you got bought out, at least there's some kind of payout. But who knows how much the buyout is after they've already crippled you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, it was really sad for me because, yeah, where Movie Magic Video was, like, it was across from Bulldog Lanes, which was, like, 2 blocks from the apartment I grew up in as a kid. So, like, we could go, there was a Mercy Medical Center was right there, so there was a hospital that had a cafeteria.
Okay.
And if you didn't want to, like, go mess around there with, cheap ice cream machine, you could go to the bowling alley where they had the arcade. That was, like, the first place where I played arcade games. And then I could go across the street from Bulldog Lanes to go rent movies. And, like, all of it was within, like, 2 blocks of my house. And then, like, Mercy Medical Center actually expanded. They bought where Bulldog Lanes was, tore it down, and just turned it into a parking lot. And then when Movie Magic Video went out of business, they literally just picked it up and, like, destroyed the building and just left a little area. Because it was one of those old photo booths where you used to drive up to a photo mart, like, hand them your film and then come back in an hour. And they would have your photos ready for you at the drive-through window. So it was one of those that had been converted into a movie rental place. So, like, it was a super small store. Like, they probably had like maybe 200 movies to rent. like max. Like it was very tiny. But yeah, I love that little sucker. And then yeah, they literally just tore it down, knocked down the building, and so it was just a little loop of a driveway in between a bunch of trees and a corner, and then I think that got torn down now, and there's like a little bank or something there.
Huh.
I hate going back home and seeing that little area. It's like those were all the little cool things that I went to, and they're all gone. It's like, God damn it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have that experience. I mean, I grew up a military brat, so I moved every 2 or 3 years. So I don't really have home. The closest is I've lived here, and where I've lived now. I lived basically since I came to school, left for 3 years, then came back. So the longest I've lived in one place is where I went to college. And I have those moments now, which is still stuff from 2003 when I got here. I'm like, wow, I remember when that was there and now it's gone. Or I remember when that was the top of a mountaintop and now it's a giant shopping mall and shopping center rather. Stuff like that.
Yeah, I think back to Movie Magic Video. That was like 1988. I started going there. Like that was a while ago. we old, man. We get old.
I mean, I sort of got a glimpse of it.
It's the alternative.
Yeah, ain't that the truth? I sort of got a glimpse of it because I'd lived in Montgomery, Alabama in 1989 as a kid of 5 years old. And then I was there for ages 17 through 18 again, living the exact same place. So I sort of had some of that moment where I was like, I remember this from a kid, but now it's gone. But there's a lot of stuff as like a 5-year-old kid that you're probably not going to remember or notice as much, that when you're 17, 18 years old, you're like, wow, this is cool, or this is different. So I don't know. It's weird. It's one of those experiences, like I understand people have it, but I don't have it myself. So it's kind of hard for it to hit, I guess.
But then again, yeah, I mean, if you're a military brat, then you have the experience of going to different places all the time, which most people like. I think it's because I still mention it to the girlfriends. Like, it's weird. I have people that I know that I grew up with that, went to, were born here in the Valley, went to school here in the Valley, and are now adults working in the Valley. And yeah, we'll never leave the Valley. It's like, I saw half the planet. And our favorite thing to do is like go to Disneyland and go on trips and stuff and like drive to Portland, drive to Seattle. Like, there's a whole big damn world out there that you can go see and a bunch of fun stuff to do. And some people are like, nope, staying here. Staying home.
I guess if you're comfortable where you are.
Yeah, it's just weird because, there's so much out there.
I will say this. I'm old and cranky now, and I go, man, I did all that stuff when I was younger. I'm okay just hanging around for a little bit. Well, I still like to go out and do stuff, but...
Get a little downtime in your old age.
Oh, man. I need this pandemic to at least die down enough I can go to Disney. That's been the plan for years. The wife and I went to Universal for our honeymoon. It was we're going to go to Disney a year or two later. Well, hasn't quite worked out yet.
Yeah, I mean, I've gone twice. Luckily, like, it was weird. We went in January 2019, like 2 months before the pandemic started. So, like, we literally went, like, right before California got shut down. And that was my first trip to Disney, which was awesome. And luckily, like, got to go then. There were, nothing had happened yet. It was the last thing that I did when the world was normal. And so it's really cool because that was my first Disney experience. And, like, we just went back last year. And, like, we wore masks everywhere except when you were out and about walking in, like, the open air areas. But, like, when you were in a queue, you just put your mask on. It wasn't really that big of a deal. It wasn't, like, it wasn't very, crazy restrictive. Because for a while, like, they had a bunch of, like, extra plastic barricades up and stuff. And they left those in some of the rides. And then other ones, like, they took stuff down because, like, they had, a lot of restrictions on Disneyland before they would let them open back up. And then it kind of, got lifted a little bit. But yeah, the last time we went, which was, I don't know, like 8 or 9 months ago. I can't even remember when we went. But yeah, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. Like, wearing masks indoors and for when you're on the rides and then when you're inside shops and stuff. Because then, you could go back outside and when you're walking around in the big walk areas, like Disneyland's got plenty of room for walking around. And like, also there weren't many people at the parks when we went this time. So it wasn't crowded. So yeah, it actually wasn't that bad. Now we're planning on going again too. My girl got me addicted to Disneyland.
Nothing wrong with that.
Damn fun place.
I haven't been to Disneyland, the United States, since 1989. So yeah, I did Disneyland Paris in 2000 or 2001, I think. So it's been a long time since I've done Disney. I guess the only good thing about the pandemic is that I have a separate bank account that I basically take $200 off of every paycheck and toss in there for vacation purposes. The vacation fund has populated itself nicely, at least whenever we get the chance to go. Who knows?
Well, that's good. And we've started rebuilding up our next vacation fund, which, yeah, cause the plan was wanting to go to Disney World, but I don't know. It's like I'm waiting for a period where the Florida man stories, die down a little bit. So it's like, yeah, I would really love for us to go to Disney World. Honestly, my plan was to go to Disney World this year and propose. Like, that was the whole plan. Like, I got the ring sitting in my bookcase right there underneath my on-air sign. There's a ring in one of those drawers for her and one for me. And yeah, like, the whole plan was to go to Disney World this year. It's like, it's still kind of crazy down there. And like, Florida's still a massive travel spot. So yeah, I don't know if Disney World's in the cards for this year or not. But after we do taxes, we might see.
The other thing for me is that I don't necessarily want to hop a plane to go to the West Coast, because I thought about Disneyland, because also Avengers Academy is only in Disneyland. They won't ever have it in Disney World because of the deal they signed with Universal prior to Marvel getting bought by Disney. So I've done like Universal, that was fun, but Avengers Academy just looks really cool. Like I've watched all sorts of videos on it, like Peter and Kitcher, who do the Ordinary Adventures videos. Like I consumed everything they did on Avengers Academy. I was like, okay, I really want to do that one day. But current me goes, my happy ass ain't sitting on an airplane for 6 hours to go over to Disney in the middle of the pandemic, where I got to deal with a bunch of people.
Your long flight would be going to Disneyland. Yeah, it's
Disney World is a 3-hour flight max for me. And you know what? I'm at a point now where I could drive it and be there in like 16 hours, I think is what it is. So in theory, I could just drive down there. I don't really want to. I would rather fly because, yes, flying costs more, but I'm a cranky old man and I get tired, and I'll be less cranky if I fly than if I have to drive.
Yeah, and I mean, our flight to Disneyland from here to go to LAX is less than 2 hours, so it's not bad. Like, you can do 2 hours with the mask on easy. It's like sitting in a movie theater. Like, it's just,
It's just the idiots around me is still my problem.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely, it's not bad for us. But I mean, the flight to Florida, trying to think about, it's like, oh, I have like a 7-hour flight from like Boise to Tallahassee or whatever. It's like, that doesn't sound like fun. Yeah, I mean, it is definitely worth going to see Avengers Academy, because we saw the live action, the new Spider-Man show where the kid comes out and does a tumbling run, and then they launch the mannequin in the air, and then he like web climbs down the wall and does pictures with kids. Like, it's so cool to see that done live, and like the voiceover that they have is done really well. And then like we actually had hilariously, I almost ran into the Dora Milaje. We were getting our food from Pym's Kitchen, and like there's not a ton of seating in the actual Pym's Kitchen area, but over on the other side of the actual Avengers building, where like the Quinjet's sitting on it, in between the Avengers building and the Guardians Breakout Tower of Terror, they put in there's an area there that's like all shaded with trees, and there's a bunch of just benches and little tables with chairs. And like the Pym trash cans are over there too. So like, it's basically a seating area for Pym's Kitchen, because it's the same trash can motif, which is kind of cool because they have different trash can motifs through all of Disneyland, which is one of the really cool things that they do. Because when you go to the Spider-Man ride, like the Web Warriors one, they have Spider-Man trash cans.
Right.
When you're over near the Pym Kitchen, you have trash cans that have Pym particles on them. And yeah, they were doing the Dora Milaje were doing one of their marches, like out of the Avengers building, as I was carrying out our food to go sit down. And like, I basically ran into a parade of Wakandan warriors. I was like, I'm just trying to eat my food. I was like trying to get out of their way. So like people were sitting there taking, photos and videos and stuff. And I'm like, we're just trying to sit down and eat. I got all this food here and I don't want it to get cold.
They're probably used to it though, just based off of how that's all positioned.
Of course.
Yeah,
we saw that. We saw the Taskmaster Black Panther fight too. Because they do like little stage shows up on the Avengers building. It is fantastic to watch.
Yeah, it's on my list. I really want to do it. But my wife has never been to Disney of any kind, so we'll probably do Disney World first, just because that's the closer one, and we'll have more bang for our buck there because it won't cost us as much to travel there. So I can set aside more money for activities and things like that. And I already know that I'll take one day to go back to Universal to do a few things that I didn't do last time I was there, or just didn't have time to, because I had a lot of fun at Universal Studios. It was a lot of fun. And there's some classic rides there that are fantastic. They still have the E.T. ride at Universal. And
Oh,
it's so
wow.
much fun, and it's so old. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but it's really cool to go and do that ride and see how, and this isn't the right term because it's Universal, but how the Imagineering has changed over like 30 years of ride development.
I'm trying to think because we went to Universal on our last trip. We did one day at Universal and then the rest of it at Disneyland and California Adventure. And I'm wondering now I think probably the Mummy would be the oldest ride I've been on.
And the Mummy is so good.
The Mummy was great. We literally we rode the Mummy and went out the door, went right back in the queue and rode it again.
Yep.
Like we rode it twice in a row. It was a fantastic ride. It reminded me a lot of like the Indiana Jones ride at Disneyland.
Yeah, me too.
Which I finally got to ride that our second time there. But yeah, like especially the part where like when it throws you in reverse.
Yep.
After like the Mummy ghost head screams at you, like it was so good. But yeah, we rode that. We rode Transformers. We rode the Jurassic Park. And then the studio tour, I mean, that would be technically the oldest ride because, like, that's, like, go see the Psycho House and stuff. But, yeah, for ride-wise, I think the Mummy's probably the oldest one there still running at the California Universal, I would think.
Yeah, and they have the Mummy at the Orlando one, which is an older ride, but it's really cool. I hope they never get rid of it. And, like, the theming around it and everything as you go through the queue and stuff.
Ride.
It's fantastic. It's so well done. It's arguably my favorite ride. Well, it's my favorite ride that isn't one of the Harry Potter rides because the Harry Potter rides are really, really good. The Escape from Gringotts ride is fantastic.
Yeah, see, they don't have that at California. So they only have the main, the Quidditch ride or whatever.
Yeah, the Forbidden Journey, I think is what that one's called.
Yeah, in the main castle. And then they have the Hippogriff, like, wicker basket roller coaster.
Yeah,
for
the
little
kid
kids.
coaster.
Yeah, we rode both of those at Universal. And yeah, the Harry Potter, like the main castle ride was fun enough. Like literally that was another one too. As soon as we got done with it, we went right back and went back through the line. And when we went, there was nobody at the time. So like, yeah, we rode the Mummy twice without a break. And we rode the Harry Potter castle twice without a break. And both were fantastic. Yeah. And yeah, that one with your feet dangling and like when they're throwing you at the spiders and stuff. And it feels like you can almost kick them. You're so close. And the way like the screens move as that, like the contraption is like pulling you through the building, like that whole ride is just a blast.
If you get motion sick though, that is not a good ride for you. My wife gets motion sick and has vertigo issues. She rode it the one time. I was like, nope, won't do it again. But the ride that gave her the worst bout of motion sick and vertigo was the Simpsons ride. That one just screwed with her.
We didn't do the Simpsons ride. Yeah, I would think the Harry Potter one would make you puke big time if you had motion sickness.
Escape from Gringotts, she could do that all day long with no issues. But the Forbidden Journey one, that just triggered her vertigo.
I wonder if it's because it's so dark in there and then it's mixing live action with screens.
Well, you've got the screens doing motion of their own, but then your cart is doing motion that may differ from what you're seeing on screen. So like your inner ear gets confused, I imagine.
I'll bet.
Like I really enjoyed it, and we got done with it and the line was short. She's like, you can go do it again if you want. She goes, I had fun, but I can't do that one again. I don't feel good. And I was like, okay, bye.
That's the funny thing. Yeah, the only one that we've had any problem with, because like Jana rides everything. Like she loves all the rides. I don't know why, is I've never had any problem with any roller coaster. I did the Death Drop at Six Flags in whichever the one, I think it's Great Lakes. When I was in the Navy, where you're literally like 300 feet above the park and then you just drop straight down. And like, not my favorite ride, but didn't have any problem doing it. The goddamn Tower of Terror, the Guardians ride.
Okay.
We went there the first time, and I want to say it was our second or third day. And like we went, and I think all we had was coffee. And then we went directly into California Adventure first, and there was nobody over there. So like we walked onto the Guardians ride. There was no line. We just walked in and rode it. And like the whole storyline setup is so cool. And you're seeing like Rocket like tearing through cables and stuff and like setting up the storyline in the little queue room and like walking through the collector's like objects and everything in the glass cases. It's possibly the coolest lobby ever. Like it's so cool to look at. Like there's Ultron heads.
That's
and
neat.
All sorts of cosmic orbs and stuff. Like just all sorts of Marvel lore. And everything in there is like actual Marvel lore. Like if you read the comics and know about Nowhere and stuff, like it's all stuff that the collector has. And so it's really cool to see. And for some odd reason, I think it could have been, I mean, I hadn't been in a roller coaster in over 10 years. At the time, I was over 60 pounds overweight and hadn't done like any type of working out. And we went on that Guardians ride the first time. And I was actually scared I was going to come out that chair. Like the seatbelt like didn't latch down all the way, and so every time we dropped, I had a death grip on those handles.
Yep.
And when we got off that ride, I was nauseous. My hands hurt from holding the handle so hard. I was covered in sweat, and I'm like, that was not fun. And she's like, that's the best ride in the park. What's wrong with you? I'm like, I did not enjoy that. We went back the second time, and a second trip to Disneyland, I'm like, all right, I got to try it again. We went on a bunch of roller coasters. We already did the Incredicoaster. I've lost 50 pounds because I've been working at UPS, and I have a physical job again. Like, I'm in much better shape. We'll give it a shot. And went in there and, like, sat down, and I'm like, yanking the fuck out of the strap. I'm like, get this damn thing as tight as possible. And got that sucker, like, sucked down into my hip bones. It's like my ass is just stuck in that seat. And I don't. It's something about they like you go up, you see something, and then they turn the lights off, and then you drop. And it's something about the drop in the dark. I don't like it. I don't like it. It's not. I didn't have nausea this time. I didn't freak out. Like, I still had my hands on the handles. Like, I wasn't exactly having fun, but I at least was able to watch the video this time and not like freak out like I did the first time.
That's the
same. Like, it was cool to see the story, because this time it was the second story, because it was Halloween time when we went. So it was Monster Breakout. So it was cool to see that happening, but yeah, it's still not my favorite ride. I don't know what it is. My body doesn't like that one.
It's why some people don't like Space Mountain either, because depending on how Space Mountain's set up at the time, you can't see the track when you're on it. So like the American version of Space Mountain, you can sort of see the track. When I rode Space Mountain in Disneyland Paris, it's dark enough that you can't see the track. So you have no idea when it's going to bank or it's going to dip or it's going to drop or anything like that. But there's all sorts of cool light effects and stuff around you that distract you. But you don't know what's coming, so your body's like, some people don't like it at all.
I made us wait over an hour this time to go to Space Mountain, because it was like the last on my bucket list of rides.
It's great.
Like, like there's the Matterhorn I still haven't done. There's some of the other ones, but like the last time we went, because it was Halloween, it's like we were going to do the Haunted Mansion with the Jack Skellington overlay, because we didn't do that the first time. Oh, it was actually closed the first time we went, because it was January. And then we hadn't done Small World, hadn't done the teacups. So like this time when we went, like the first thing in the morning, we went and read all the kiddie rides. We ran Cinderella, we did Peter Pan, and we did the teacups. I was like, okay, we're going to do Small World because there's no line. And then later in the afternoon, like we just kept checking the app over and over again, and there was never a time where there wasn't an hour wait for Space Mountain.
Yep.
And finally, I was like, let's just go do it. We'll go wait in line. And like, it was a pain in the butt to wait that long. But we got the first car, and I think maybe because we were in the first car, I could see where the track was.
That could be.
And so maybe that's why it didn't bug me. I thought it was I loved it. I had a blast on that one.
Space Mountain's great.
But yeah. That was one of those ones that's like, that was a really long line for a fairly short ride. Damn it. So that part kind of sucked. But other than that, it was a great ride.
Yeah. No, I need to go back down that way, and I will fully admit that I chickened out and didn't do the Incredible Hulk roller coaster just because that seemed a bit too intense for me at Universal. And I think this time if I go back down there, I'm just going to do it and say the hell with it.
Which type of roller coaster is that one? Is that one where you hang from it?
You hang from it. I don't like the ones you hang from. I like the ones where you sit in a cart, because this is one like you sit and you hang from it. You've got the shoulder straps that come down over you, but your feet are free. Yeah, with inversions and corkscrews and stuff. It was.
Yeah, see, I love that. That's the way the Batman was at Six Flags in Illinois. And like when that one came out, there was, I think the first time we rode it, because there's a bunch of us from the Navy went there, it was like a 2.5 to 3 hour wait. And we timed it. It's like a 42-second roller coaster.
Yeah.
Like you're on it for less than a minute.
Yep.
We got done and instantly got back in line and rode it again. We waited another 2 hours, and it was just a blast. I like those because the way they harness you in, where like you're basically like they're pinching your shoulders and your hips.
Yeah.
I actually like those because I feel more secure. I don't give a damn that my legs are hanging. Like if my shoulders feel secure, then I'm good.
I think it's psychological for me having my feet dangling. That just makes me like, nope.
Yeah, see, and I love those. But yeah, fucking Guardians kicks my ass every time.
Yeah, I don't know, man. It's weird. I want to go back now. This is bad. This conversation has got that itch scratched again, which means I'm going to start falling down the YouTube rabbit hole again of watching more of these channels from folks that are going to the theme parks and talking about stuff. It's a problem. Oh, and I think the new Jurassic Park's almost open at Universal too, or is. I mean,
that is the nice thing about like Tim Tracker and Ordinary Adventures and stuff is at least you can watch all the stuff. when you can't go.
It's true. The guy that I watched a ton of for Universal in Orlando is Rick's Flicks, I think is what his channel is called. And it was really good because he does a lot of stuff at Universal, less so at Disney. So since we were Universal centric, it was pretty cool to watch his breakdowns, his tips of things to do. And I actually did use a lot of his tips to help make our trip a little better when we were there. So it was a huge help to me. I enjoyed it. But yeah, wow, holy crap, we've spent 40 minutes just reminiscing about shitty jobs at Walmart and then be like, I want to go to the theme parks.
We did old man talk and then we talked theme parks.
We're just hitting all those markers today. We're hitting all those markers. I guess what we should do now is I don't think Willie's going to make it. So we're going to rotate over. We're going to talk our news of the week real quick.
Live from the ATGN studios on the internet, it's the news of the week.
Welcome to the news of the week. It's that part of the show where we run down was in our minds some of the most interesting geeky or nerdy news to have popped up here in the past couple weeks or so and share it with you guys who are watching live or listening at a later date. Now, my news requires me talking about the most recent episode of the Book of Boba Fett. So, if you haven't seen the Book of Boba Fett, go watch it. Pause this right now. Go watch the most recent episode of the Book of Boba Fett. Because we're going to talk about something that happened in there right now as part of my news.
Spoilers.
It's been out since Wednesday. This is Sunday as we record this. You've had plenty of time to watch. So just be wary. And we're going to try not to geek out too much because this episode of the Book of Boba Fett had a bunch of things happen that I never expected I would see on the screen. And I kind of loved it. I don't care that Boba Fett was only in the episode for like 30 seconds.
Like the thing I never thought I'd see, the part where R2 said, "Bitch, have a seat."
Yeah. And then I'm like R2, and this is a meme I'm totally ripping off. I just want to turn off when people want me to do stuff I don't want to do. I'm just going to turn it off. Just like, nope.
I'm just shutting down.
Just shut down. Go to sleep.
Droids have the life. They just
really
turn
do.
themselves off.
So we're going to talk Book of Boba Fett right now. I've given you guys enough opportunity to pause the podcast to go watch or wait, and we'll find some way. If you're watching the live feed and you don't want to be spoiled, go ahead and mute the audio. We'll wave at the screen when we're done talking about Book of Boba Fett so that you'll know when to come back. And if you're watching the YouTube version, I will try and put the time code in the YouTube comments so that you can do that. So Book of Boba Fett, what is it we're geeking out about? Well, I mean, no big deal. Ahsoka Tano showed up, which we never expected to have happen. We got to see Grogu again. We got to see the construction of Luke's Jedi Academy. Oh, we got Luke damn Skywalker back again.
Yeah, boy.
That, something that when he showed up at the end of The Mandalorian season 2, we're like, holy shit, I can't believe this is happening. This is insane. There was a whole episode of Disney's Gallery episode, The Mandalorian, all about how they did it and how they pulled it off. The appearance of Luke became rife for a lot of people to go online and say, this isn't good enough, and come up with their own methods for how they would have done it. In fact, one guy did a deep fake so well that Lucasfilm hired him to work in their special effects department, presumably on the Luke Skywalker special effects and deepfake that we saw in the Book of Boba Fett. And we got a crap load of time of Luke Skywalker on screen. Like, the end of The Mandalorian, he's on screen for what, like 4 minutes maybe?
Plus, it's dark in a space station. He's hooded for part of it. There's shadows. This is direct sunlight looking into camera, not moving. It is. There's no hiding it. It was direct sunlight on camera, a oneer of like his torso. You can't hide shit. It better look good.
Now, there are a lot of people out there, even with this, I thought this was fantastically well done. There are moments where it sort of takes you out of it a little bit. You can tell it's not quite, you have the uncanny valley still in a couple places, which is fine. That is what's going to be. But the people that are complaining about it, I want to be like, go back to Rogue One in the Princess Leia deepfake that we had there.
Yeah.
And look at what we've got now. And that's what, 5 years difference? Look how the technology's evolved. The way people are employing it has changed and become better. We're getting to a very interesting point where the tech is allowing us to de-age people. And what I thought was really interesting, and there are a bunch of people that are divided on this, is I didn't realize until after the episode aired that we heard Mark Hamill's voice as Luke Skywalker, but it wasn't Mark Hamill that went into the voiceover booth and provided the voice of Luke Skywalker.
And that one I don't get. Like, it's weird enough that they're doing a stand-in and just mapping, like digitally mapping his face onto somebody, but like the Masters of the Universe Revelations just finished. I think Mark Hamill's available to do VO work. Why wouldn't they just get him and then just tweak his older voice to make it sound a little younger?
So I don't know. Maybe he was. Maybe he didn't have availability for it or something like that. I don't know. But what did happen, and if you watched the Disney Gallery episode for The Mandalorian, I think it was Jon Favreau, and I'm pulling this from an article that I'll put in the show notes. It said some people didn't realize his voice isn't real. His voice, the young Luke Skywalker voice, is completely synthesized using an application called Respeecher. So evidently, Luke's voice in Mandalorian was also not Mark Hamill in the voiceover booth, but was instead this tool they have called Respeecher. Now, there is a sound editor by the name of Matthew Wood who gave some background and said, it's a neural network. You feed information into it and it learns. So I had archival material from Mark in that era. We had clean recorded ADR from the original films, a book on tape he'd done from those eras, and then also the Star Wars radio plays he had done back at that time. I was able to get clean recordings of that, feed it into the system. We were then able to slice it up and feed their neural network to learn the data. So from their point of view, it was, we have a bunch of stuff from Mark Hamill doing work in 1983, promoting Return of the Jedi, doing the audiobooks, things like that they could then, in their minds, better recreate the voice, I guess, versus having Mark Hamill go in a voice booth and then try and de-age his current voice to do it. I also think some of it might be that from their standpoint, it's easier to just use this app than it is to get time with Mark Hamill because he's a busy actor. He's doing a bunch of stuff. Maybe it wasn't they couldn't get him to come in a booth because he was busy with other things. Who knows? From a technology standpoint, it's really interesting that they are basically able to recreate Luke Skywalker's face from a bunch of videos and films and pictures from 1983 and then do the same with his voice to portray him on screen. Was it perfect? No. Was it damn close? Yes. And I think there's people that are being a little too critical of the times when it wasn't because the technology is insane. It's constantly getting better. And I think some of the criticism, whether people realize it or not, might be that uncomfortableness with that they're creating people out of nothing. And in theory, you could do this. Remember, we had Grand Moff Tarkin in Rogue One.
I was saying, as people that have thousands of hours of audio files on the internet, like,
you know, so deepfakes are a concern for a lot of people in that regard, especially folks that work in film and TV and things like that, because in theory, there's 450 plus episodes of this podcast that's published on YouTube and on Twitch. There's a lot of video content that you could find of myself, Bachman, Willie, Naki,
real easy
stuff like
if
that.
Somebody wanted to have us say whatever they wanted us to say.
The difference they have with us is you're not getting a lot of off camera or off angle poses. We turn our heads a little bit and things like that, but you're not going to get as much footage as they like to have for those deep fakes to be able to train them because we're almost always in the same positions. Now this Respeecher app and doing basically voice deep fakes, that's more what I would be concerned about with the thousands of hours of audio content that I've put out on the internet over the last decade.
Yeah, they can basically make us say anything.
Right.
Yeah, it's weird too. I think part of the Uncanny Valley thing, where like especially when you look at the difference between the Princess Leia and the Grand Moff Tarkin in Rogue One, the reason that Luke still has that almost shiny, somewhat unnatural robotic look, it's whenever they try to do basically clear skin. They try to do flat, clear skin without blemishes. It ends up looking too perfect, which that's what makes it look not human to the eye. Because I mean, our skin is translucent. It has so many layers. You've got the veins. You've got blood vessels. You've got 100 different layers of little things that make up all the texture and nuance of somebody's face. Where with Grand Moff Tarkin, they were able to put in the wrinkles and get the cragginess, and then because they were doing all that extra detail work on the face, I think that Grand Moff Tarkin in that movie looked way better than the Princess Leia. Because they were trying to do like 19-year-old Carrie Fisher with no blemishes, just perfect skin. And so she looked a little dollish. And so yeah, whenever you do a character that doesn't have blemishes, it seems to be a little tougher to pull off.
And I think the thing that is different there is they weren't using deep fake tools there. They were doing like full CGI faces and things like that. So they weren't.
Yeah.
Whereas
they were building it basically, in a computer.
And even Luke Skywalker in Mandalorian Season 2, they said that wasn't deep fake. That was the CGI work, similar to what we've seen also for the de-aging in the Marvel movies and stuff like that. And let's be honest, some of that is really good, and then some of it, you just hits the right angle, doesn't look right. Like Samuel L. Jackson in Captain Marvel, 90% of the time, you're like, holy crap, they made Samuel L. Jackson look like he's 30 years younger.
Freaking Ant-Man.
Yeah, with Michael Douglas.
Ant-Man. Yeah, Michael Douglas. He looks amazing in the start of that movie.
Robert Downey Jr. in Civil War also.
Yeah, see, that one bugs me a little bit.
Yeah. So, I mean, part of it is there's always going to be that little bit of unnaturalness that I think human eye detects things like that.
Which we hope. We hope that stays there.
I mean, as much as it's evolving, who knows? The real question now, though, is we've gotten to this point with how well, and we're all assuming that because Lucasfilm hired the guy that did a really good deep fake of Luke Skywalker, that they deep faked Luke in a Book of Boba Fett. The real question now is, are we at the point where, money aside, you could, in theory, have Luke Skywalker regularly be appearing in these Disney Plus shows because they've already done a bunch of the training on things. They've got the body doubles that they've trained the deepfake tools to work with. And they even have the way to recreate Mark Hamill's voice if they can't get him in a voice booth, or if they think it's easier to use the respeecher tool than it is to de-age his voice. Are we at a point now where Disney says, hey, we've got FU money. We don't need to recast Luke Skywalker as Sebastian Stan, as a lot of fans have asked for, unknown actor X, Y, or Z that could look the role. We can just use the deepfake tools and have him appear from time to time. And I think if you're talking just appearances, maybe. I don't know if I'd want to do a whole Luke Skywalker show like that, because the more he's on screen, the more I think we as viewers are going to start to notice when things don't quite look right.
Well, and I think then the real problem becomes, it's the whole, your scientists were so concerned with could they didn't ask should we.
Right, so there's a morality play here.
Does Mark Hamill get paid for these appearances? They're using his likeness. This is, to the audience, Luke Skywalker is the actor Mark Hamill. So if you're using his visual likeness, you're using audio files to recreate his speech patterns. So you are giving us a 100% digital created version of Mark Hamill playing Luke Skywalker. You're not doing the Marvel's Avengers games where we're going to change the face up enough to where it doesn't look like the actor. Right. Or we're going to change the voice enough so it doesn't sound like the actor, so we don't have to pay them. You are literally trying to give us a digital version of Mark Hamill playing Luke Skywalker. Mark Hamill better be getting a paycheck for that, because otherwise, then you really have a problem.
Yeah, I don't know.
If a company can just put whoever they want in a movie.
Well, and I guess here's the better question is those contracts may not have been worded for that in 1980s. What are contracts like nowadays? If you sign a deal to be in a Disney Plus series, or you sign a deal to be in the new Avengers movie and things like that, are you also signing as part of that deal basically licensing your features and voice so that they could deepfake you 20 years in the future? I don't know.
Yeah, we have to think that all future contracts, especially Disney, they're going to have something written in there with the words in perpetuity, where it's like, for the rest of my life and my ancestors, like, you can only use my likeness with my permission, or I get a paycheck. Just like, with the new, Scarlett Johansson rules, if you don't put the fucking movie out in theaters, I still get my bonus check. Like, they have to keep changing, with the world. These contracts have to keep getting bigger. I would hate to see Tom Holland's probably about to sign a new 3-picture deal for Spider-Man between Sony and Marvel Disney. It would probably be insane to see what the actual language of that contract looks like. What they can and cannot do. What he can and cannot do as a private citizen in his private life, because he would endanger himself. Because, I've heard all sorts of stuff about, like actors that like riding motorcycles, like Norman Reedus, where you sign onto a big project and they're like, oh, no, you can't ride in a helicopter. You can't ride a motorcycle. We don't want you having bacon for breakfast. Like, we want you taking care of yourself. They don't allow you, certain actors to do certain dangerous activities. Like, it's insane how detailed some of those contracts get. And, with advances in technology, which changes the way stuff like, movies going out in theaters or not going out in theaters and end up on streaming services. Every time a little something like that happens, that's another paragraph to a page of something that has to be written into an actor's contract. Like, I'll bet that new Tom Holland contract that they're going back and forth on right now is probably 80 pages, if not more.
I mean,
it's probably insane.
It's not just Disney that's going to be doing this. You can't tell me that if the Batman is really good, that DC's not going to want to have that for Robert Pattinson to be able to lock in that character forever and stuff like that. Which, side note, supposedly the Batman is really good based off the initial screenings. We'll wait and see.
Fantastic.
It does look good.
The S&M crazy, creepy fucking Riddler gimp. I don't know why at first that really turned me off, but now it seems like a really cool idea that he's just a psychotic instead of, a guy in a green suit covered in question marks.
Right. But going back to this topic as to whether Mark Hamill's getting paid or not, I don't think anyone knows. No one's talked about it, be it Favreau or Filoni or Mark Hamill or any of the entertainment bloggers out there that get these scoops and anything like that. Do I think it's possible? Favreau and Filoni probably want to keep him engaged and cool with all sorts of things going on in Star Wars, so it wouldn't surprise me if he was getting some sort of residuals or something like that. But at the same time, it also wouldn't surprise me if he wasn't, because they're like, hey, it looks like you, but it's not you. I don't know how these deals work going forward, or if there was some kind of agreement with Mark Hamill that, hey, we can do this going forward. I don't know. Where we get into the uncomfortable morals of it is, let's operate under an assumption right now. And this is an assumption. We don't know this for a fact. But let's say Mark Hamill gave him a big thumbs up, said, yay, verily, go ahead and recreate Luke Skywalker that looks like me at the age of my late 20s, early 30s. And he was fine with that. What happens, say, 30 years from now? Mark Hamill's what, like 70-something? That would mean he's 100. So, yeah. And I don't mean this sound in a bad way, but not a lot of people make it to 100. So let's assume 30 years from now, Mark Hamill's passed away. What's the morals? Do you keep making stories about Luke Skywalker with 30-year-old Mark Hamill's face? Can people get over the fact that this actor that is beloved by the community in which he is a part of it? Let's be honest, everyone in the Star Wars fandom loves Mark Hamill. Is there an ick factor basically that comes into play with he's dead and we're still telling stories with a character that has his face on it? It's a lot easier to get over, hey, he is Luke Skywalker to me, he always will be, but we recast the character, so now we've got two people that wear that face.
Yeah, see that. Yeah, that it's funny because when you can do it digitally, and so you can basically keep the likeness of one actor in that role forever, possibly. I mean, then are you asking the family's permission? Are you going to his wife or his kids every year or two and having to re-up a contract to say, hey, we want to keep using this likeness. We're going to pay you X amount of dollars. We're going to keep making Luke Skywalker stuff. Like, how long does that last? Can they do that for the next 300 years? I mean, Grogu ain't got these problems. He's a puppet. They just shove a hand up his ass and he does what he's told. But, I mean, Mark Hamill is an actual working actor. Like, he should be getting paid if they're using his likeness on anything. Like, that's the whole point of actors. Like, they create the character along with the story, and that gives us, all the stories that we love is the work that they do, so they should be getting paid for it.
So the technology is incredible on this stuff. It's just, we're getting into that of we can do it, but what are the repercussions of it? So, like, I'm fascinated by the tech that goes into deep faking Mark Hamill's face on another actor. I'm fascinated by the technology with that Respeecher app to basically get control to use things that he has said at that time to recreate Luke's voice. Now, you lose a little bit of like nuance and things like that. I don't think you're going to get quite the same kind of inflection with especially a trained voice actor could give onto things, where you could have like a playful tone versus a foreboding tone and things like that. I think there's a little bit of tonality that's kind of lost in there because everything kind of came out a little flat.
There was something about it. I mean, I hadn't even thought about it watching it, but now thinking back on it, like there is something that seems a little off in his speech patterns.
Now that
it makes sense now that it's a program. Yeah, it's like you're listening to an algorithm mimic Mark Hamill's speech because it's not actually Mark Hamill talking.
I mean, but it did give me the moment of Ahsoka Tano talking to her master's son and saying how much like his father he is, and you're just like, oh shit.
Yeah, that part was kind of, it's like, oh yeah, this is Snips. Like, this is Snips hanging out with Luke.
And again, how did they keep all of this secret? How did they do it?
Well, and that was the other thing. Because we talked about like Mark Hamill. Like, I just checked his Twitter again. Like in the last couple of days, he's tweeted nothing about Book of Boba Fett, other than the fact that the hotel he was staying at didn't have
Disney Plus.
Disney Plus, and so he hashtagged it Boba Fettless, and so like he probably wanted to watch the episode when it popped up and hasn't seen it. But yeah, like when the last episode of Mandalorian came out for season 2, he was all over Twitter that day talking about, oh yeah, I had something in the works and couldn't tell you all about it. And like he was, just going crazy talking about his appearance in The Mandalorian as young, like, hey, fucking Luke's back. People check this shit out. It's so cool. I guess he was all over Twitter, and now like there's like nothing on his Twitter.
I guess the difference then was like they brought him on set, like he did scenes as Luke in robe to get an idea of how Luke would move, to give the body double some ideas. Like they did scans and stuff of his face. I mean, they've got those scans now, which probably help them if they choose to age the character or something like that. So I don't know. Maybe it was just a matter of, we've got these tools now. We don't really need Mark back on set, and maybe Mark's not available, or maybe they didn't offer the invite. I don't know. And that's where, like, as much as I liked seeing Luke back on screen, I kind of hope we don't find out, say, like a week down the line, that Mark Hamill was not on board with this or surprised by it, didn't know it was happening, because that kind of takes that cool moment and you're like, oh, they recreated him and used him there, but he really wasn't on board with it. I hope that doesn't end up being the case.
Yeah.
That's kind of what my worry is. Now, it's Favreau and Filoni who have done a pretty good job of keeping the fans engaged in things, being open and transparent. And when this happened last time,
Cote would say, they've done a pretty good job so far.
Yeah. And last time talking to Mark and making sure he was cool with things. So it's entirely possible that we're just not privy to the fact that there's been conversations they've had and they all said, yay, verily, I'm okay with you doing this. I don't know. I hope that's the case, is just my biggest takeaway, because I think if we find out it wasn't, it would take this really cool moment and make it less cool and kind of make you be like, oh, this is the House of Mouse just doing whatever they want. Oh,
yeah. Which, that part would suck if that ends up being what's happening. But I mean, with Filoni and Favreau, it's like, we're pretty damn sure. Like, I can't imagine Dave Filoni ever doing anything that would hurt Star Wars.
I mean, didn't Filoni direct this episode?
I believe so.
Or was it last episode? I can't remember.
No, last episode was Dallas Bryce Howard.
That's right, Bryce Dallas Howard.
Because she brought back the baby.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Sorry. So I think Filoni might have directed this episode. So I am fascinated by the technology. I'm fascinated by what went into it. But I'm really hoping we don't find out that it has an ick factor associated with it, for lack of a better term. I think you guys know what I mean by that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But if you haven't seen it, you probably just listen to me talk about it. Hopefully it convinced you to go check it out for yourself. And one episode left of Book of Boba Fett.
What I was going to say, we didn't even mention the big reveal of a new live-action character.
Oh, that's true.
In episode 7, which, because someone had put it up on Twitter, like, who would you really like to see pop up in the Book of Boba Fett, like more characters? And like in the back of my head, I was thinking about one that I really liked, and I happen to be watching one of his main arcs in Clone Wars right now, where they try to kidnap the Chancellor, and there's a blue mercenary who's all about like 6 episodes in a row, and he's just fantastic. And he's like the baddest gunslinger in all of Clone Wars. And I was like, oh, that'd be really cool, but that'll never happen. And literally, when they showed the camera panned out to show the desert, and someone's walking across the desert into town. It was actually this episode was directed by Robert Rodriguez, which that's why it makes more sense, because this is a straight cowboy episode, and the end of this episode is an Old West shootout. This was a straight up, like, Once Upon a Time in Mexico scene where a guy walks into town, talks some shit, and shoots some people, and this is motherfucking Cad Bane. And it was perfect. He looks a little weird because it's live action. It's a character that's blue, has a weird gaunt face with tubes coming out of it, red eyes. He's very strange looking. But as he comes walking with his cowboy hat on, we got a fantastic scene with him. But it's actually the same actor that did the voice work for him in Clone Wars doing the voice of Cad Bane. Because the physical body basically is just whatever stunt double they're CGI in his face, because it's one of those things where it's like it's an image that no human face could fit inside of because of how like cut into his face the design work is. and so it's it's a lot of CGI. So yeah, at this point, for Cad Bane, I'm not sure it really matters. They could have anybody standing there. It's like the guy that was pushing around BB-8. You're never going to see the guy in the green suit pushing the little rollerball. We're not going to see the guy who's standing there wearing the cowboy hat to give the CGI guys, markers for where they want to put the blue face of Cad Bane. But we got the actual voice of Cad Bane doing live action Cad Bane in a shootout with Cobb Vanth, and damn, that was cool. I was so excited, and I literally yelled. I was sitting in my chair. We were watching it. I was relaxing in my recliner, and when the camera panned out across the desert, and you see somebody way off in the distance, and it's just a silhouette, and I threw my hands up in the air. I'm like, yes! And my girlfriend's like, who is it? I'm like, oh, you'll see in a second. As soon as they showed the silhouette of the cowboy hat, I knew who it was. Ain't nobody in Star Wars wear a cowboy hat but Cad Bane. And if you haven't seen Clone Wars, Cad Bane is one of the craziest bounty hunters ever. He fought Obi-Wan and Anakin probably 30 times over the course of the Clone Wars shows and always got away. He also had one of the greatest kind of annoying droid partners. He had this little droid with him whose name I can't remember, who was just a pain in the ass. But yeah, he's a straight up gunslinger, bounty hunter, uses flamethrower and the cables and the rocket boots. But he always rocks a giant, not quite cowboy hat, but a giant hat. And yeah, just such a cool rendition of him in the live action. It was so awesome to see that. So yeah, I think I've got all of the Clone Wars until they start bringing in Rebels characters. I'm good with everybody they've brought in from Clone Wars.
I mean, which is presumably happening in the Ahsoka series because we've already gotten casting announcements, I think, for some of them.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I'm really hoping we're going to see a grown-up, why can I not think of his name?
Ezra Bridger?
Ezra, yeah. I'm like, who's the main character of Rebels? I've seen every episode. Why can I not think of the character? Ezra, yeah. I want to see grown-up Ezra Bridger, the only Jedi who has a gun in his lightsaber.
I want to see Ezra
cool
Bridger
kid.
meet Luke Skywalker, but I don't think that's going to happen.
That would be cool. I want to see, what's his name, Rommel? The guy that was in iZombie and Midnight Mass.
Oh, yeah.
I want to see him as adult Ezra Bridger. That somebody, I think Boss Logic did a drawing of him in the Ezra Bridger costume. That would be perfect casting. If Ezra grew up and grew a beard, that's what he would look like.
If Ezra's going to show up, you better believe they've got a lid down tight on that casting office right now. I mean, I think we all assume it's going to happen, but I'm pretty sure we don't know when it's going to happen, and we don't know who it'll be. So we've seen how many secrets have they kept about everything in the Mandoverse right now?
It's true.
Yeah.
I mean, there was no talk of Cad Bane until that episode came out. There was no whispers, no nothing I saw on Twitter. But yeah, I mean, because Ezra's he's one of the last lost Jedi. He actually was trained as a Jedi by a Jedi Padawan.
Yeah.
He actually was trained by another Jedi to become. So, I mean, Ahsoka's out there, but she's a Force user. She left the Jedi Order. Ezra was actually trying to become a Jedi, and then got lost in the wilds of space with frickin' old Bluebeard. So yeah, it'll be cool to see if he comes back, what they do with that. And yeah, I mean, Filoni loves all of his characters, so at some point we're getting some Rebels.
Yeah, this is where it's going to be interesting because they've got the potential to bring all these characters back. We already know how Luke's story ends, so we've got to figure out if you bring those guys back, how do you get rid of them so that Luke's story ends how we know already?
Yeah, there's certain parts of the story where they have to disappear.
Yeah.
It's Baby Grogu can't be at the temple when Ben Solo goes nuts and kills everybody because Kathleen Kennedy's not signing off on any storyline where they kill Grogu. We were talking about this with the in-laws yesterday. No one's going to sign off on that. There's no point. I'll tell you right now, Grogu is alive post the Skywalker saga, and he's at that point, 80, 90? So he's like an 8-year-old. So he should at least finally be talking. But he is somewhere. We don't know where he went during those films, but he's somewhere. Because there's no way they're killing off the merchandising giant that is the child.
He's leading the Mandalorians on New Mandalore.
Could be. He's wearing his little chainmail. He's got they took the dark saber and they shrunk it down to a Yoda-size dark saber. And yeah, and he's got his little he's got his shoulder pauldron with the mud horn on it. and he's just kicking ass and mad at the world because somebody killed his dad.
Right.
Imagine that storyline. Yeah, they make a tiny throne on Mandalore for Grogu, the first in the long line of Mandalorians who's actually a Jedi, like the one who made the Darksaber.
It was one of the Vizslas. I can't remember which one.
Yeah, there was a Mandalorian Jedi before. There could be a Mandalorian Jedi again. Just saying.
It's true. We'll just have to see how it develops. But I think we have talked enough Book of Boba Fett. So for anyone who's watching the video version who's still on mute, we're going to wave a lot right now, so you're safe to come back.
Spoilers are over. Spoilers are over.
Spoilers are over for anyone that was waiting for the wave on video. You're welcome to come back and join us now. We have one last News of the Week story, and then we'll wrap things up with what I'm into, because I'm just going to go on a limb here and think that Willie's not joining us today.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to be. I was going to hit one tiny thing first before my big news story. Armed with a new creative team and a bold lineup, the most dangerous group of Avengers returns more savage than ever this May. There was a new article put out on the Marvel website on February 3rd. The biggest, baddest, most dangerous team of Avengers returns in Savage Avengers #1. And congratulations to David Pepose and Carlos Mango as they begin a new run of Savage Avengers this May. Friend of the podcast, David Pepose, is now going to be writing the Savage Avengers for Marvels. In sports ball speak, he has been indeed called up to the big game. In fact, the big two. He's writing Marvel Avengers comics. And yeah, I'm just going to put it on my pull list. Like, seeing what he's done with something as crazy as Oz and with Spencer and Locke. I mean, yeah, the fact that he's got a team, his team's going to be made up of Daredevil, which is the Elektra Nachios Daredevil.
He's got a hell of a toy box.
Yeah, Anti-Venom, Black Knight, Cloak and Dagger, and Weapon H being chased by and Conan being chased through the Hyborian Age by an evil Deathlock. So yeah, it is a crazy cast of characters. It's going to be so much fun. The first cover they're showing is done by Linnell Francis Yu and Sonny Go. It's a badass looking team, and it's going to be really, really cool to see what they do with those characters. Yeah, so congratulations to David. It's so awesome to see he got called up to the big two, and he's getting to write an Avengers comic. I mean, the guy's already won, Ringo Awards. He's been Eisner nominated, I think. I don't know if he's actually won an Eisner or not. I can't remember at the moment. But yeah, he's done a ton of amazing work in the indies, and his Kickstarters have been fantastic. And it's just great to see him get to work on a giant, giant book. And, maybe create something for Marvel that ends up becoming a toy that lasts, past his life. I mean, good on you, David. It's going to be exciting to see what you do with these characters.
It's got to be super exciting just from his perspective to be like, hey, I've been creating my own characters, which is awesome. And don't take this as a slight, but it's like, wow, now I get to play with some of these characters that I may have grown up reading in comic books and stuff like that. I imagine that's a different feeling versus being like, this is my character versus being like, this is a character that hundreds of other people have helped shape, and now I get to do it too. Holy shit.
Yeah, creating your own toys is awesome. But there's a whole lot of toys out there that a lot of writers and artists just really want to play with.
Right.
I mean, there's a reason, like, after 15 years on Invincible, Ryan Ottley was so stoked to go draw Spider-Man. And now he's drawing the Hulk. Like, there's big toys in the toy box that everybody wants to get their hands on at least for a little while. But yeah, it's going to be very exciting to see what David does with a crazy band of Savage Avengers, and I will be adding that to my pull list.
Yep, me
Not
too.
like I need more comics, but yeah, I need more comics.
Just what I needed, right?
Yep. And then my news story of the week was we happily got to see a disaster movie come out as a disaster and get slapped by a bunch of guys who really like to slap people. Box office.
What did they slap them with?
A giant hand. The box office report from Pamela McClintock from February 6th, article on the Hollywood Reporter. Jackass Forever gets the last laugh with a $23.5 million opening. So the R-rated slapstick comedy easily outgrossed Roland Emmerich's big budget Moonfall, which crashed to earth in its box office launch. I love that little subtitle. It says there was nothing gross about the opening of Jackass Forever at the box office. R-rated movie took in better than expected $23.5 million from 3,604 theaters. Would mark a triumphant return to the big screen for prankster king Johnny Knoxville and his crew. It cost a mere $10,000 to make is the second box office win and profit generator for Paramount following January's Scream, which has already passed 100 billion. So, I mean, we've talked, big time about how Disney, owns damn near everything. And between Marvel and the Disney shows and Pixar, like, they've just been running the theaters. Paramount's actually had the last 2 months. They've had January and February this year so far. Disney's killing it over on Disney Plus, but past Spider-Man, Paramount's actually, holding court and doing fairly well. So it's going to be weird to see, what finally comes in and takes over for Jackass. But right now, Jackass is, costing $10 million and makes 23 its opening weekend. Like, that's impressive in COVID times. Let's see.
We sort of talked about it in the pre-show, and I'll just kind of reiterate a thought I had there. This is Jackass. It's dumb, it's stupid, it's entertaining. This is kind of that dumb, stupid, entertaining thing we might have needed some folks just to be like, oh, okay, I need a break from stress I have that's job-related or COVID-related stress that keeps stacking on top of things, to just go see a bunch of people who, whether you like them or not, you got to admit, they cleaned up their lives a crap load. Remember the first couple Jackasses, like they were drunk and doing all sorts of stuff. And then starting with like Jackass 3, like clean set.
Everybody in this cast is sober now.
Yeah. That's the thing that is the big sticker there to me, is that these guys partied hard. And nowadays it's kind of cool to see that they're like, nah, man, we're kind of just doing our thing, having fun, but trying to stay clean too, because friggin' Steve-O of all people, if you had asked me 20 years ago if I thought he would make it to almost 50 years old, I would have thought he'd have OD'd somewhere, gone out in a blaze of glory doing something dumb. And Steve-O, man, has been sober for ages at this point in time and does these because it's fun.
Yeah, I just want to say, I think one of the Jackass crew died in a drunk accident a while ago. But other than that, like, the majority of them now are clean and sober, and they're still doing this stupid shit. So it's not like they did this stuff just because they were drunk or high. Like, this is literally just the dumb shit they like doing.
Well, they got smart with this too and brought in some younger folks to do some of the stuff too. They added people to the Jackass crew for this movie, which kind of smart. Even if they don't want to do another movie, they've kind of established a new guard that could continue doing some of these things and maybe only bring in the old school guys to laugh at them as they do it or stuff like that.
Yeah, see, I was wondering about that because in the article it says Paramount Pictures, MTV Entertainment, and Dick Productions decided to revive Knoxville's slapstick, gross-out comedy franchise after a 12-year hiatus from the big screen since Jackass 3D. And Jackass Forever is purportedly the last film in the franchise. But as we're now getting greenlit for Scream 6, if Jackass makes $100 million and it costs 10, they're going to do Jackass 5 Ever. Like, they'll give it some stupid fucking title, and they'll come back and do another one. Like Chris said, you add in other characters, you bring in other guys, and eventually it'll be Knoxville and Steve-O behind camera directing Jackass movies. They'll be just laughing at people getting hurt.
I wouldn't be surprised if you saw, I mean, this is just pure conjecture here, that eventually you get to the point where Knoxville's really just doing like the funny gags and not necessarily the stunts.
Yeah.
Like, keep doing the bad grandpa kind of things and things like that, where he might do some weird gags or a couple bumps here and there, but I imagine
where he's not getting shot out of cannons anymore.
Yeah, I imagine that these guys all being probably in their late 40s at this point in time might have been a wake-up call, because it's just like, holy shit, I don't bounce back that quick anymore.
Well, and they joke about in the trailer too. They're like, what is it? If you have concussions over the age of 40, it's like they do more damage or something. It's like, and Johnny's 39, so we're good.
Yeah.
It's like we're going to get all our concussions in when we're 39, right before we turn 40. That way we're fine.
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet. I want to see it. I don't want to see it enough to go to the theater for it, I'll be honest. I will see it at some point in time. It does look I grew up, Jackass was a thing when I was a kid, so this stuff is fun to me. It's entertaining. For those that were not aware, Bam Margera is not in the new Jackass. He could not stay clean on set, so he was not allowed to stay. Yeah. And I believe he was suing them over it at one point in time because he'd started filming some stuff. They had some deal that, like, he had to do like either daily or weekly drug tests and stay clean. Otherwise it wasn't going to happen. The dude's in a bad place. Yeah. It would have been nice to have seen him there, because it would have meant that he had cleaned up his stuff and been in a better place mentally. But I don't think he's been able to do that. So it's interesting to see how the crew has kind of evolved. And obviously there's some folks that won't be there because they've passed away. But it seems like they brought back most folks. They even brought back folks that may not have been in the most recent Jackass movies.
Yeah, it says what they reunite with many original crew members. So you got Knoxville, you got Steve-O, you got Chris Pontius, Dave England, Wee Man, Danger Enron, Preston Lacey, Sean Poopsies McCurney, Zach Holmes, Eric Manaka, and Rachel Wolfson, and then numerous cameos. And yeah, it also said, what was it? Because it skews young, of course, big shocker. Critics love Jackass forever. It did younger moviegoers and especially younger males. 3/4 of all ticket buyers were under the age of 35, while 67% of the audience were males. Movie currently sports 85% fresh rating on Rotten Tomatoes. It was 90, so it took a little dip. So, I mean, yeah, like, of course, it's like we all know all the dude bros love Jackass. And so, like, dude bros were out seeing Jackass this weekend. And then, yeah, it kicked the shit out of Moonfall, which Roland Emmerich, if you don't know, has been the producer for, like, all the giant disaster films, basically. It says, backed by Centropolis, the movie opened in the $10 million range in North America from 3,400 theaters after costing at least $138 million to make. So you basically have the exact opposite. Moonfall made what Jackass cost. That's not good. Because it looks like from the previews, every shot in Moonfall is CGI. It says, Lionsgate's distributed it domestically. It stars Halle Berry, Patrick Wilson, John Braley, Michael Pena, Charlie Plummer, Kelly Yu, and Donald Sutherland. So of your $138 million budget, just those names right there, that's probably $60 million. So, like, it hasn't even made enough yet to pay for the cast. Like, yeah, that's hurting. And then, of course, it's skewed older. More than 50% of ticket buyers 35 and up. Skewed male 60%. Moviegoers sent Moonfall to the back of the class with a C+ cinema score. So, it got a C on cinema score. It made Jackass's budget. When a Roland Emmerich disaster film comes out and it makes the budget of a Jackass film, they are gonna be hurting. Yeah, it might be a while before we see another Roland Emmerich giant disaster film, but from the looks of things, when Jackass Forever goes and crosses the $138 million mark and makes more money than it cost to make Moonfall, I think we're probably going to get another Jackass film.
I'm sure Roland Emmerich is going to blame the Marvel movies because he was quoted, just like most directors recently when a movie's about to launch, about how the Marvel movies are bad for cinema. I've heard this story how many times? I still don't care. Give me more Marvel movies. I enjoy them.
Good storytelling is good storytelling. There's a reason those comics have been around for 80, 90 years and can keep telling stories. Some of them are good, some of them are bad. And when you're making movies out of them, all you have to do is pick the good ones.
Yeah. Yes.
You've already hit an audience with the story and found out what works and what doesn't. And so that's why with those 23 movies of the Marvel franchise that told the Infinity Gauntlet story basically took almost 20 to 30 years of Marvel comics and condensed them into 20 films.
Yep.
I mean, that's a lot of storytelling to pick and choose all the good stuff from. It works.
I think that they just make the Marvel movies a convenient scapegoat because the machine seems unbeatable at some points in time. And it's, my movie did bad because of that. Not because my movie's bad.
And plus, like you said earlier, I think a big part of it is, even in a disaster film, like supposedly there's some like machine inside of the moon, and astronauts are trying to fight a machine to stop the moon from falling on Earth. That's a lot of thinking for a stupid disaster film. When right now, when the world's stressed out and people are stressed out and everybody's got anxiety and we're still living in COVID protocols and the world's just fucking crazy, I'd rather go see some idiots hit themselves in the face with a pie or a bucket or an inflatable airbag or get shot out of a cannon.
Blow up a porta-john with someone in it.
Yeah. Why would anybody ever use a porta-john on a Jackass set? You know it's going to explode.
Right.
Yeah, they're insane. But yeah, it's stupid, fun humor where we've seen people do get hurt, but nobody gets killed. Like, there doesn't tend to be any permanent damage, at least so far. None of these guys have reached 60 yet, so we don't know.
We don't know if the CTE is going to set in anytime soon. I mean,
the
there's a lot of head trauma there.
Yeah, the CTE might get real bad real soon. But so far, all the Jackass guys that are alive and made this film seem to be physically okay. And it's a movie that doesn't require any thinking. You're going to go to the theater, laugh. You could be stoned for it. You could be drunk for it. This movie requires nothing of you other than just sitting down and looking at it. Where Roland Emmerich, a giant disaster movie, it's going to make you think. And so, yeah, I mean, it seems so easy for, people putting stuff in theaters like, oh yeah, Jackass is going to destroy that one because it's the stupid fun people want right now. People want relaxing. Like, the girlfriend said she almost cried when Baby Grogu showed up in Book of Boba Fett. She's like, oh, I just miss this character I love so much. It's like people just want something to be fucking happy about right now. Like, the world's crazy. Give us some joy. The Jackass boys make a whole lot of people laugh. And they made some money for it. So, yeah, I have a feeling we'll be seeing Jackass 5 ever real soon.
Yeah.
I don't think it'll be 12 years in between now and
At the same time, I really worry about 50-year-old Johnny Knoxville and Steve-O doing some of these stunts, though.
I don't put it past them eventually dying on a set. I mean, I'm not saying that in a bad way. They seem to enjoy this crazy, like, doing violence to themselves, like physically hurting themselves and then laughing about it. A lot of these guys seem to enjoy that in a way that most people don't. And, like, I would not be shocked at all if I heard that a Jackass guy died during a stunt. Like, there's a reason every episode of their show and all their movies have the big warning that says you and your knucklehead friends shouldn't try this shit.
I mean, the thing to realize now, they actually plan these things out to actually be sort of safe now, whereas back in the day it was, let's do this. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, they definitely have more safe stuff, but I mean, yeah, there's always a chance that, I mean, this might be one of those shows where it's going to be the last Jackass standing.
Yeah.
They just keep making movies until it's just Wee Man left. And he's like, I'm done. All these motherfuckers are dead. I'm going home. I mean, who knows?
So if you get a chance,
good for them. They made themselves a good chunk of money this weekend.
If it's a movie you're interested in seeing, go see it. You'll probably get some good laughs out of it. Early reviews are pretty promising. People said they laughed. If you like the earlier Jackass movies or the series, you're probably going to like this, is what it comes down to. But yeah.
Then like.
So on that note, we are going to start wrapping things up. But before we shut things down, we do a little segment every week, a bit called What I'm Into. It's when we share with you, our listeners / viewers, the geeky and nerdy things we've been kind of checking out, because you may want to go and check them out yourselves after you hear about it from us. So I'll kick things off. A few things I've been getting into. Finished the series Murderville on Netflix. It is absolutely hilarious. If you are not familiar with what this show is, it's a adaptation of a British show, but it is Will Arnett starring as senior detective Terry Seattle, whose job is to solve murders each week. And each week he's joined by a guest / celebrity investigator who is an actor or another famous person of some kind. But here's the kicker. Will Arnett and the other supporting characters, they all know the script, how things are going to shape up. The celebrity that is on set is there and has to improv with them. They don't have a script. They have no idea who the murderers are they're looking at. They're just doing what they're told to do from Will Arnett. So there's just some brilliant back and forth from these actors with Will Arnett and the supporting actors they have in there. Honestly, the guy who stole the show from me after I've watched it, there's been 6 episodes, Marshawn Lynch, is absolutely hilarious because he fully commits to just playing this character in a murder mystery story. And he's just fully committed to the thing. And you can tell he's having a blast and trying not to crack up. And it's absolutely hilarious. It's the kind of thing I needed right now because I think Will Arnett's hilarious and can riff with anyone. And this is just 6 30-minute episodes of him riffing with different hilarious people. Like the finale is him and Ken Jeong. Ken Jeong is hilarious. Nice. And Ken Jeong just keeps cracking up and breaking up in the middle of things as it's going on. And it's absolutely hilarious. Conan O'Brien's the very first episode. And let's be honest, Conan can riff with anyone. It's absolutely hilarious. It's on Netflix, and it's actually got a sort of storyline that runs through all of these things with a murder mystery. I mean, the formula is pretty simple. There's a murder that happens. You have a investigator who basically says, hey, here's what we found on the body. And then they interview 3 different people to try and figure out who the actual murderer is. And at the end of the episode, the police chief comes in and says, Ken Jeong, or whoever the guest host is, who's the murderer and why? And if they get it right, they'll explain why. And if they get it wrong, they fire them and say, no, the real murderer was this person, and here's why. Nice. So there's actually a mystery going on. There's clues that they show on screen, not necessarily verbally, but written things you'll see. So it's not one of those shows you can like half watch and play around on Twitter, because it's a hilarious murder mystery. And they just sprinkle clues in. Some of them audibly, some of them visibly, some of them with the person just disclosing a fact about themselves. So it's actually really fun. And I think I got 5 out of 6 of them right when it was all said and done. I hope they do a season 2 of it. It's absolutely hilarious. Just hilarious. If you need a good laugh right now, which I think we all do, be it for any reasons, your job's boring or something like that, or you've just had a rough time, this is something you can watch and you can have a pretty good laugh during, excuse me. I really, really enjoyed it. It's only 6 episodes.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to it. I keep forgetting that that's on there. Like, as we're watching other stuff, yeah, we need to give that a shot because it just looked funny as hell when I watched the trailer.
Yeah, the trailer's hilarious, and oh man, Marshawn Lynch is just the way he delivers some of the stuff he's told to do in there. Because there's a recurring segment where the guest goes undercover and has an earwig in, and they basically have to do whatever Will Arnett says, and Will Arnett's telling him to do something. And you just kind of see this. The fuck look on Marshawn Lynch's face for a second before he realized, oh shit, I'm undercover, and has to like school himself to pretend to be undercover. It's really great. And it introduced one of my favorite aliases, Octavius Shitwagon. My favorite alias of all time right now.
Shitwagon?
It's
Wow.
it's Dutch and French, but mostly French.
Medwagon.
Octavius Shitwagon.
Wow. That's a good one.
And it's also really fun because the actors they bring in to play these witnesses and things like that, if you've watched a lot of other comedies and things like that, you start to recognize some of these folks. Like, oh, I saw him on The League, or I saw them on Adult Swim. So they're bringing in some really hilarious people to come in that have improv talent to basically like riff off of whatever is being said by the guest who has no idea what the script is. I mean, the guests are the one that are generally questioning these folks. They've got improv because they're not knowing what the questions are. It's really fun, and I like improv comedy, so it was hilarious. Go watch it on Netflix. It's great. It's brilliant.
Nice.
It's a quick watch.
Did you see the trailer for the girl in the house across the street from the girl in the window?
I just watched the trailer for it last night after we finished Murderville because I've heard a lot about it, and I think Kristen Bell's hilarious.
Yeah, she's so awesome.
It's weird. I think I'm going to watch it, but that actually brings me into the next thing I've been getting into is right before we finished Murderville, I was like, oh, I really want to watch something different. I was like, oh, I forgot this show started this week. So on Prime Video, they just debuted the show Reacher. And if you're familiar with the Jack Reacher books, there was also 2 Tom Cruise movies all about the character Jack Reacher. I think there's like 38 Jack Reacher books that have been done.
Something like that. There's
This that just dropped is the television adaptation of the first book, I guess. So it's over 8 episodes. And they cast in the role of Reacher, because everyone just calls him Reacher. Aquaman from Smallville. Thad Castle from Blue Mountain State. Hawk from Hawk and Dove.
Yeah.
Alan Richardson. And the dude is a freaking jacked. I mean, like, that's one of the big defining traits of the character of Jack Reacher, is he's supposed to be like 6'5", 280 pounds and just super jacked, which is why Tom Cruise playing the role didn't make sense.
Yeah, a lot of people complain about the movie because Tom Cruise is like 4'2".
Yeah, so they kind of make a point throughout this of keep referencing just how big Jack Reacher is in this and having him dwarf over every other character because I think they purposely cast people of slighter stature so that he would tower over them in this movie or show rather.
And he is huge. Alan Richardson he's huge. He's a big dude.
And I think I'm 2.5 episodes in and he's taken his shirt off like 8 times just to show how jacked he is, because that's a defining characteristic of the character of Reacher, I guess. So the dude is in incredible, impeccable shape, and there are some awesome, just brawling fight scenes that they do with the character of Reacher. Some of the last ones was him with a hunting knife fighting another dude with a hunting knife after he just beat up 6 other dudes.
Nice.
It is really cool. I'm enjoying the murder mystery aspect of it. I guess there's a theme to the stuff I'm watching right now is murder mystery stuff. Really enjoyed it. I think it's only 8 episodes on Prime Video, and I think they've already picked it up for a second season. And I think Rotten Tomatoes had it like 94% certified fresh.
Nice.
Really have enjoyed it. There's some really intense brawls in it, and I'm sure that they're going to take some of those and do them on Corridor Crew's VFX, or excuse me, Stunt People React channel, or show rather. Yeah, and seeing in the chat room, it's mentioned the Reacher shows seem like they have a lot more humor than I would have expected. There's some really good deadpan humor and some humor related to the fact that Reacher knows you can kick everyone's ass, and comedy based off of that. So I've greatly enjoyed it. I'm only 2.5 episodes into like the 8 episode arc, and I think each episode's about an hour long. So it's not a quick watch necessarily, but It's really good. Holy shit, you have what, 3 coffee cups there?
He asked what was up with the coffee cup. I'm triple fisted it.
I
fill my cup, and then I fill my mug, and then Jana went and got us coffee. So yeah, I've got 3 coffees in front.
I've got my water cup, and then just because I hadn't taken it upstairs to clean it, I've got my rechargeable battery-powered travel mug that stays warm for like 3 hours.
I'm sitting here for 2 hours, and I can't reheat up my coffee, so I bring multiple coffees.
That's fair. That's fair. I guess the final thing I've been getting into before I toss things over to Mr. Bachman here is just this morning I finally picked up Pokemon Legends Arceus and started playing it.
All right.
And they have changed the formula of Pokemon. If you thought Pokemon was stale, this is kind of like a hybrid of Monster Hunter, Pokemon, and the most recent Zelda game, which I just lost the name of all of a sudden.
Breath of the Wild?
Breath of the Wild. If you combined all 3 of those, that's basically the concept of this game. Like catching Pokemon now, you don't actually have to fight Pokemon to catch them. You can sneak up on them in the bushes and throw a Pokeball at them and stuff like that.
And actually just catch them?
Actually just catch them. Some of them are so aggressive you have to wear down their health to be able to catch them, so you then have to brawl, but it's pretty interesting. And this takes place, I guess, in the Pokemon lore long before all the other games. This is when people are still afraid of Pokemon and people are just beginning to learn how to capture and train Pokemon to do things. So it's like the very beginning of the stories of Pokemon. And I've only put in about 45 minutes to maybe an hour on it, but I've had a lot of fun with it. And I guess what got me started is one of the channels I like to watch on YouTube is called Beat 'em Ups. It's by Wood Hawker, who's a big Nintendo Switch fan. He was like, yeah, sorry guys, it took me 3 more days than I planned to get my Pokemon Arceus game or video out because I loved the game so much that I would just start playing and realize, oh shit, I need to stop so I can work on the review. I think by the time he got his review out, he said he'd put 55 hours into Pokemon Legends Arceus. He had started playing, when he first started playing, when he got the game, he started doing a live stream on Twitch, and he goes, I played for 13 hours, completely unplanned. He goes, the only other thing I can do for 13 hours is sleep. I don't know how I did this. So, I mean, he's a very big Pokemon and Nintendo enthusiast, so obviously he's probably going to like it, but the fact that it's different is one of the things that he was talking about that was so interesting to me. And having gotten a taste of that myself, granted, I'm still very much in the very beginning of the game where they're hand-holding me, I've had fun with it. And I've seen in the chat room comments about Pokemon Snap. I know they are doing a new release of Pokemon Snap, but I have no idea if they're redoing the formula of it any, or if it's just like it was in the N64 version. But that's what I've been getting into. Finished Murderville, watching Reacher, started playing Pokemon, and of course I've been watching professional wrestling, where the one and only very evil, very elite Danhausen just showed up in AEW. Congrats to Danhausen.
Yeah, he does seem to be having a hell of a fun time.
He's got a hell of a gimmick, and people find fun out of it, so I'm glad that that's the case.
That's always awesome. Let's see. Game-wise, yeah, I've been still working on the Chapter 3 of Ghost of Tsushima, because I haven't finished that game yet, and it will be my game of the year for 4 years running. That's my plan. I will eventually finish that damn thing. Like
someday.
Half of my COVID, I was playing that game. I still ain't finished it. I'm doing every side quest, every little mini
That's the sign
mission.
of a good game. I got no judgment here.
I love it. I freaking love it. Other than that, playing a little bit of Fortnite, almost done with the new Battle Pass where I got all of level 9, so I got my Spider-Man outfit. And then once I finish level 10, I think I need 5 more battle stars, and you get the black suit. And then after that, I think there's missions where you can unlock 3 other suits, including the Future Foundation suit, which is awesome. I love the one it's black on white. And then they released more of the Foundation stuff, which is the Rock's character in the Fortnite. And so I got the Rock's outfit. I think yesterday we were playing with the nephew. He came over and we did a little running around. And then when we came back, we all played. We played some trios in Fortnite, which was a blast because we played 3 matches. By the time his parents showed up, we won the first match, lost, and then died in the second match at some point, and then won the third match. So out of 3 matches we played, we got the victory royale twice. So yeah, nice. The 10-year-old nephew was pretty stoked. Like we were actually in there doing well and kicking some butt and had some fun. And then yeah, playing some Dead by Daylight. They've been doing their 2-week-long Lunar New Year event for the Year of the Tiger, which they did some good graphics for it. They brought back the hooks and the generators that have the fireworks on them, which is cool. The red envelopes work again, which are just they're It's a specialty event item that you get to keep. You can only use it during the Lunar New Year, but then if you don't use them up and your character has them from last year, you can use them next year, which is good because I just did a Prestige 3 on my Feng Min character, so now she's back up to level 50, and I'm collecting all the perks with her, and I have like 52 of the envelopes, so there's no way I'll use them all in the next couple of days, but next year I'll be able to use them then. It was cool because they decided to change the envelopes a little bit this year, where it used to just add points to the event. Now an actual floating red envelope appears in the match for everybody that does an envelope for an offering. And then they had it says in there that you see your own envelope when the match starts, and then after you touch it, somebody else can touch it. But they seem to have changed something in it to where now, like we had a match last night where all 4 survivors and the killer put an envelope in for the offering. At the start of the match, I could only see my envelope, and then I never saw anybody else's. So I think there's something wrong with them because they ended up making a change, because what it was you touch your envelope, get points for it, like 3,000 to 5,000 or whatever, and then that makes your envelope visible to everybody else. Whoever touches it second, you also get bonus points because you put that offering in, and then they get a random amount. And people were getting like 33,000 blood points, 22,000 blood points, maybe 40, 50,000 blood points. On the random blood points, people were getting a ton. And so they quickly put in a little patch, and all of a sudden we're getting like 3,000 blood points or 1,000 blood points. And when you get 1,000, it really sucks because to buy the envelope in the blood web as you're leveling up, it costs 3,000 blood points. So if you spend 3,000 on an item, use it in a match, and then only get 1,000 back,
Oh, that's ridiculous.
why would you even want it? Exactly. Like It's actually costing you blood points. So it was really great for like the first week of the event, and then big shocker, behavior ruined it because it's what they do. So a lot of people just stopped running envelopes at this point. But other than that, like the cosmetics and stuff they did, you unlock 10 free cosmetics just by touching an envelope in the matches. And like I got the first 10 done super quick, and it was, killer masks and killer weapons and survivor outfits. And all of them were, themed for the Lunar New Year, Year of the Tiger, which were really cool looking. You got some cool shirts and a real funky clown mask where he's got just like gold paint on his face and tiger stripes, where he just looks super creepy. So that's been fun. And then other than that, doing a whole lot of updates in here. For those watching video, you can see above me, I have, using command strips, about $60 worth of command strips, I have hung 192 Funko Pops around the walls in my den.
That's a lot of command strips.
Yeah, above my desk here on this wall that you guys can't see on camera, I have 60 bad guys, mostly movie villains, some comic book villains, but just all bad guys. On the far wall that you can see the very end of to the droids, I hung 68, I think, Star Wars Pops. And then the wall behind me, above my art desk, is 58 Marvel Pops. So in total, I have like 320 some odd Pops. I got 192 of them up on the wall and off my bookcases. So now, once I rearrange the office again, I'm actually going to be able to pull some toys out of the garage, empty some more of the boxes because I'm still unpacking. But I'll finally be able to unbox. I bought the Stan Lee from Thor Ragnarok hot toy, where he's got all the drill bits and stuff for cutting Thor's hair, because that was I looked at a bunch of different Stan Lee statues and stuff. I was like, no, I actually want the hot toy. Like, that's going to be my Stan Lee representation in my office, is him in a full-on Jack Kirby outfit, looking like a Jack Kirby character. I love the cameo he played in there, and he cut Thor's hair. Like, he's the reason Hemsworth doesn't have to wear a wig anymore. And so, I just love that version of him. I bought a giant hot toy. It's probably going to go right here on top of the new desk. And then, I rearranged the office. I tore down my old school computer desk that I've had for almost 20 years, which was a big corner desk. I got me a nice L-shaped desk that has a little more surface area. It's going to be easier for me to use the hue on so I can do some artwork. It's got room for the new 32-inch curve monitor I picked up from Costco. It needs to be shuffled around a little bit more. We had actually set it up where I had it yesterday, where I had my entertainment center with my 50-inch TV next to my 3 computer screens all on one wall, and it looked really cool. I pulled the old computer desk out, built the new computer desk, and went to slide it in the corner and realized that the new computer desk is actually longer than my corner desk was when it was in the corner. And so the entertainment center sitting right next to the desk actually pushed out past the door frame, and the den door would never be able to be closed, and like it actually blocked the walkway. So sadly, the entertainment center does have to be moved back to where it was, but man, it looked really cool for a couple hours. So yeah, I'm just reshuffling around this den, trying to eventually get everything to fit in here. But like, I mean, I finally got up like the Master of the Universe Revelation toys that the girlfriend got me for my birthday. I got my Tila and my Skeletor up there. I got my Dorbs. I got some droids up. The droids are probably going to come down, actually. I'm going to put up the Bride, and Marv will probably go up there. But then, yeah, I'll be able to put some stuff up on the bookcase where the Bride is at now. I've still got my Daily Bugle. So it'll be nice where I can get everything behind me looking good, get some artwork up on the door to the laundry room. I'm probably going to put a page of comic art up there. All the movies have been organized. It's getting closer and closer every day. Almost got the den where I want it. And then I can actually finally start unboxing comics and cataloging those, get through all of that, so that finally my girlfriend can park in the garage, which is the only thing she wants. And by the time I get it done, it won't be even snow season anymore, so it won't matter. But I got to get it done. So yeah, that's what I've been into. It's just moving shit.
Keeping busy.
Moving shit. Yeah. Busted my hand open at work. I got a giant bruise on my knuckle. Just, I got a job that physically kicks my ass, and then I come home and move stuff around, and I'm just exhausted. But it's been a good week. We got a ton of stuff done. And then, yeah, now what was my monitor, the new 32-inch curved monitor, is replacing a TV I was running as my main monitor on the computer. So now my computer runs better. Everything fits the screen because it's actually a monitor and not a TV. And that TV's going up in the office upstairs. And then the office TV that was up there is going to go and be mounted on the room in our bedroom. So we'll finally be able to just lay in bed and watch Netflix again like goddamn adults should be able to. But yeah, other than that, we've been watching Book of Boba Fett. We have 2 episodes left of Demon Slayer. And then last night, I noticed HBO finally dropped all of season 5 of Rick and Morty. So I had seen episode 1, the Nimbus one, because they put that one. What is the comedy channel that does this? Adult Swim had put the first episode up on YouTube, so I watched that. So I think I watched the first 3 episodes of Rick and Morty season 5 before I went to bed last night. So I got to see the Clones episode, which was hilarious, where basically the entire family, I think, gets killed something like 45 times during the episode, and they just keep killed hundreds and hundreds of different ways. And it's one of those like insanely crazy episodes. And then luckily, I made it almost 2 weeks. The girlfriend and I had been, not feeling great, didn't want to go out in public, had avoided going out into the theater, and, didn't catch Scream 5 until just last weekend. And then we finally got to see it, and I was so happy I didn't say anything, and I didn't mention anything because I didn't want to jinx it. But as the credits started rolling at the start of the movie, I turned to her and said, I haven't been spoiled. I don't know who the killer is. And I was so excited to be able to sit down in the theater and watch a new Scream movie, not knowing who the killer is and trying to guess it as I was going through. Had a blast with it. It's a really good film. It's the only thing I don't like about it is the fact that they called it Scream. But in the movie, they actually talk about, what was the term they come up with? Requel. So it's not a sequel and it's not a remake. But it's when you basically relaunch something with legacy characters and new characters. So like the new movie Halloween, that's the 3rd movie called Halloween. Like, it's so annoying that it's called that, but then they have Halloween and Halloween Kills, and I guess the next one's going to be called Halloween Ends. And now we have a 5th Scream movie, and it's just called Scream because it's a requel. So they're relaunching the franchise, but it's still technically a sequel to the previous 4 films. But yeah, I mean, you have all the main ones back. You have Sidney Prescott, you have Dewey, you have Gale Weathers all back. And just, it was so well written. And I mean, one of the things I read the Fangoria article about it, and one of the things I loved was Kevin Williamson was talking about, like, they were trying to get him on board for it. And he's like, Wes is dead. I didn't write this. I'm not really sure I want to be a part of it. And it was kind of bugging him. And like, he thought about it, like they asked him, I guess, like 10, 12 times to be a part of the movie. And he's like, I don't really want to do it. And once they finally took no for an answer and started stopped bugging him, he kind of sat back and thought about it. He's like, do you really want there to be a Scream film out there that you had no part in, that you weren't involved in? And I mean, Wes directed it, and Wes is awesome, but these are characters that Kevin Williamson created. Like, he wrote the original Scream script that was called Scary Movie. And so, like, this is the world he created, and he's like, yeah, I need to at least be a part of it. And apparently he contacted, Radio Silence, the guys that directed it, and said, hey, I do want to be a part of it, but only if it's a film that we can dedicate to Wes Craven. Nice. And so, I mean, I don't think it's a spoiler, but they literally have a character named Wes that dies in the film, and then all the characters do like a shot at a party and yell for Wes. And then when the credits start rolling at the end of the film, it says for Wes. So like, it's just awesome that they got back together. These guys that loved the Scream films and got together with the original writer and just did kind of a love letter to Wes Craven. It's a great slasher. It's got a ton of really cool, brutal kills. Like, they kind of went overboard on the special effects. I was really excited about it. The girlfriend was a little creeped out. It was a little like a lot of like on-camera knife going into somebody shots.
Ooh.
So yeah, it might get some people some woozy. So fair warning, if you're not really up for that, you may want to watch it at home. Be ready to cover your eyes because there are some creepy stabs, actual stabbings in this film. But it's just there's some good jump scares, great sound effects, really good editing. The acting is just phenomenal. The new cast members are great. The new characters are great. The whole reasoning behind the requel that they do and the whole explanation of it is awesome. And yeah, I don't want to give anything away because it's so great if you can go see it not knowing anything. And it's just, yeah, it's a whole lot of fun. And it was one of those things where, like, honestly, I was one of those people, I loved Scream. I grew up with the slasher films in the 80s. I still think A Nightmare on Elm Street is a perfect film. It's one of my favorite films of all time. It's usually sitting at number 1 on my film list. Like, there's just nothing beats the original Nightmare. Scream came out, and Randy Meeks made fun of all those movies and set the rules and the tone. And it was the first like horror movie that referenced horror movies. It was like the start of the whole meta thing. And I mean, after Wes Craven's New Nightmare, but it was characters in the film having murders happen and referencing other horror films as a way to survive them. And then like they did the second one, it's like, okay, cool, I kind of expected. They did the trilogy. It's like, okay, well, that's a perfect wrap up. Just stop, like, you're done. And they said they were doing a fourth one. I'm like, really? Why? And then the fourth one came out and you get the reasoning in the movie. You're like, okay, it's kind of great. The way they wrote it is really good. Like, it makes sense. And then I hear a fifth one's coming out. I'm like, really? And they're not even going to call it Scream 5. They're just going to call it Scream. Like, what the fuck? And then you see it and it's fucking awesome. And it's a love letter to Wes Craven. It's so worth seeing. Honestly, if you can see it in the theater, if your local cinema is a place that you think is safe to go see a movie, go see it on the big screen if you can. They're already going to make Scream 6. The only thing I hope is that eventually if they do an 8th one, they just call it Stab 8 because it would be the most self-referential thing ever. And the Stab 8 jokes continue in this movie that were started in Scream 4, which is just hilarious. But yeah, it's great writing, great editing, great directing, fantastic acting, amazing special effects, and a great soundtrack because of course it always still has the Red Right Hand in it, the same song that's been in every Scream movie, and it was a joy. I left the theater so damn happy. It was so well made, and it's a blast. If you love slashers, it's a great slasher, and if you love Scream movies, you'll love this one too. I can't believe I'm saying that about Scream 5.
Right?
Like, it's so good. Yeah, I was so like prepared to be like disappointed and sad. It's like, oh, why did they make that? I mean, I'm a kid that grew up with 9 Friday the 13th films. I own all 8 of the Nightmare on Elm Streets. I've watched them multiple times. Usually sequels fall off, and it's weird, but I think Scream is like the one franchise. I'm not going to say they keep getting better, but they stay on par. And that is a hard damn thing to do when you have a series of films that has 4 sequels in it. And I mean, they did trilogy rules for the first 3 and it fit the trilogy and ended perfectly. And they still did a 4th and a 5th and it works. But that's what I've been getting into. I'm going to go watch the Scream movies again.
Very nice. Before we get out of here, Willie, what you been getting into?
I don't care about myself.
That works. That works. Willie doesn't care about himself.
Well, it's because he was an ugly damn child.
That's true. I didn't have the picture queued up and ready, or I'd have had it on there. I thought it was better just to go to the blank screen. Yeah, so on that note, we are going to start shutting things down. A friendly reminder, we do stream the show every Sunday live at 11 a.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Central over at www.geeks.live or www.nerds.live. Either one will get you to us, and you can be a part of our chat room. Chime in, let us know what you're thinking about things. Friendly reminder, if you are over on geeks.live right now, you can scroll down to the bottom of the page. There is a calendar of all of the upcoming live events. So please go check out some other content on the Gonna Geek Network. Before I shut this thing down, do you have any final thoughts to share with the people?
Go enjoy something.
There you go. I agree with that. Go have fun. Go enjoy yourselves, especially and if the weather is nice. Go outside. Go for a walk. Enjoy things outside. We finally have some of our snow melting off, and it is, I think, supposed to get in the mid-40s today. So I'm kind of looking forward to going outside for a little bit. It's been cold and gross and disgusting, and all I've gone outside to do is shovel snow. I'm ready to have some fun.
Yeah, that's no fun.
It's no fun at all. But on that note, we are getting out of here. We will see you all next week. Thank you so much for joining us. And please, like we said, go have some fun of some kind. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to this brand new episode of the All Things Good and Nerdy podcast. Don't forget, we'll be back next Sunday live at 11 a.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Central over at live.atgnpodcast.com, channel 3 of the Alpha Geek Radio app, and over at our network home at gonnageek.com/live. If you have any feedback for the show, please contact us atgnpodcast@gonnageek.com, on our hotline number at 304-806-ATGN, or even better, go to Twitter and send us a message at ATGN Podcast. The music you've heard in this show is produced by Kevin MacLeod and can be found at incompetech.com.